Hey everybody, Sarah here. I am inviting Renee and Terry, and then we'll get started. Got it. Hello.
Hey.
Hi. You did so well accepting the invitations.
Our capacity for growth knows no bounds.
We've successfully crossed the biggest hurdle. Now we just get to talk.
Looking forward to it.
So hello to everybody who's joining. This is fun seeing all your names pop up. And some of you may know me already. My name is Sarah Duet. I'm the social media manager here for the Narrative Enneagram. I'm also an artist and writer apart from this job or in addition to this job. And so we're actually going to flip the script today. I'm normally in this box asking the questions, but I will be answering them today. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry to get us started, and we're just going to have this conversation. So Terry, take it away.
Great. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Terry Saracino, and I'm here with Renée Rosario. We're teachers in the Narrative Enneagram, and both of us were so excited after we read Sarah's book that we called her and said, we need to talk about this. So here we are talking about this. I marked all these poems. I don't know if you can see my little stickies the first time I read it, because they so touched me. And she'll say a little bit more about Blackout poetry in a minute, but it's so related to our organization's values and what we do. And Renee had the same feeling. And so we both reached out to Sarah. Renee will say a little bit in a minute. But first, I want us to center for a moment. We often begin our classes and our meetings just with a little centering. So I invite you to bring yourself in. Just pull your attention from the outside to the inside. This is just a powerful shift of attention to kind of just check in where we are right now. And you might just follow your breath for a couple breaths in and down. And I know many of us multitask these days, but I learned many years ago that if we can just focus on one thing at a time and give it our full attention, it's so powerful. It helps us get present. So as much as you can, just let go of whatever you were doing before you got here and just kind of bring your full attention here for the next hour or however long you can stay as we have this conversation. Yeah, so a couple more breaths. And then we'll come back out. And I do want to say one thing before I turn it over to Renee. There will be a giveaway at the end of this. So we really encourage you to stay the whole time, because you might be a lucky person to get a copy of Sarah's book. Yay. So Renee, over to you. What do you want to say to start?
Terry, thanks, Sarah. I'm really happy to be here. And, you know, when I read the book, and Terry's alluded to this already, again, the Enneagram just feels so embedded in it. And especially the core values that our organization worked on for like 8 months last year, coming up with these new core values that feel like such the bedrock of what we do, and that your poems all elucidate. So those core values are compassionate curiosity, you know, which is like being open-hearted and curious about our experience and others' experiences as well. Grounded presence, bringing our own attention into our inner landscape to be more receptive to our experience. Worth and belonging, right? That understanding that, you know, that we are all enriched, we're all included, right? That everybody belongs to this beautiful, diverse world, that we're all part of that. Collaborative creativity, which, you know, you might be able to speak to a little bit more, Sarah, because certainly you are a creative being. But anyway, we open to wonder and possibility. And finally, individual, collective, and structural transformation of really seeing, we really, you know, began this more clearly in 2020 and expanding on our personal transformation to include the greater whole, to include all beings. and that is really kind of our goal, is to transform ourselves, our communities, and our world to bring more justice, more fairness. So really happy to be here and to explore some of these really lovely poems. So that's what I'll say, and over to you to talk more about how you came to this. Like, how did you, it's so creative. How did you come to this project?
Yeah, thank you. What a great foundation. I needed that centering today. So thank you both. And I guess we can show people the book that we're here to talk about. So that's probably reading backwards for you, but there's the book. And it's Blackout poetry, which I'll explain, but here's just, a little look at what that looks like on the page, a little different than what we might think of as traditional poetry. But yeah, it was a pandemic project for me. This was birthed in early to mid 2020, and I just felt very bottlenecked creatively. And a lot of my work requires my creative capacities, and it was like there was so much to process and so much happening and so much to take in, and I felt like it was just all building up, and I couldn't get it out in the ways that I normally would get it out, which makes sense. We were in a totally novel circumstance and environment. So I tried some new practices, and what I've learned over the years is that often it's easier to start by creating something from something that already exists rather than just this really daunting, like, clean slate, blank page. I mean, we're always creating something from something. Creativity is like inherently combining things in novel ways, but this Blackout poetry practice is just so explicitly that. Because I'm literally taking pages from newspapers or old books or magazines and, skimming it, looking for words that pop out to me, and eliminating all of the rest of the words so that what remains creates this new meaning in the form of a poem. So it's kind of creating through subtraction, and it's a very minimal practice. It almost always gets better the more words that you can remove. And it was very tactile, which was helpful for me, because like when our whole lives became lived through screens, just having paper and marker and something with texture and to touch and smell, and the sensory nature was like very calming, very regulating for me. And so what started as just an attempt to kind of soothe and regulate and get back into a creative flow just became a lot of fun, became very helpful to me. And then as I shared these poems, they really connected with a lot of other people. And so it kind of became my way to document the process of this pandemic experience and everything that came with it, and then to share that hopefully as a gift with others. And I ended up making like over 400 of these in about a year.
Wow. I kind of want to do one, listening to you talk about it. Right?
Good. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like anybody can do this. Thank you to Sam, who is sending love in the comments. We love Sam. But yeah, and I always encourage people to try it. And I also was playing a lot with collage at this point, which is sort of the opposite. That's like creating by addition, but still something from something else. And this is like creating from subtraction. So, people could try either or both and see what works for them. And I kind of took a hiatus of making the poems after publishing the book, but I find myself kind of needing to return to it lately. It's just, everything still seems like a lot lately.
You think?
Yeah, kind of coming back to it as a practice. But anyway, that is an overview of why and how I got into this. And the book is called What Happened is Happening, which was actually words that got pieced together in a collage that I was making. And it seemed to me to just speak to the reality of, you know, the virus that caused this pandemic and the chaos that has come from it was a novel thing. It was a novel virus, a novel illness, but the vulnerabilities and challenges that it exposed were not. You know, it just exposed and exacerbated problems and inequities and injustices and challenges that were already present, to a point where, you know, more of us couldn't ignore them. And so what happened was already happening, and it's still happening, unless enough of us really can pause and look at things and decide to do things differently. And so this was sort of my journey with that, and trying to offer us a reminder and a perspective on what's been happening.
I love what you said, that everything was happening before, but it just put a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
And it brought it to the surface, and it was all over the world and we couldn't escape it. And yet, but what so moved me about the poems is that they're universal. I mean, yes, there was the pandemic, but there's all these other things too, that the feelings that I had reading the book evoked, right? You know, it's kind of universal in a way. I think that's what spoke to me some about it.
And I think when you said, you know, the pause to pay attention, it's like, in a way, for many of us, especially, you know, the dominant culture, you know, there was a pause. We stopped and we could actually, you know, we did pay more attention to a lot of things that was easier to ignore for a long time during the pandemic.
Right. For those of us with the privilege to take that pause.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. That's what I mean. And it's I have to say, it's the privileged ones that need to wake up the most.
Right.
Right. Like, we need to be paying more attention to actually, you know, the greater community, the world. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the specific poems that stood out to you, or that you want to hear today? Because I'll read a few of them.
Good. Well, the ones, so the one I want to start with is on page 94. And I just want to say a little, in our work, what just struck me was our notice, pause, allow. But we also have a process many of us called in the Enneagram want to use it as a tool for growth. And in this poem, you talk about being uncomfortable in two different ways. We're uncomfortable sometimes in our type, and then when we're uncomfortable when we want to change it. And so which one do you want to choose? So I'm going to let you read the poem, and then we can talk about it.
Great. And I love that we're starting with this one. This was actually one of the very first ones that I did. I think this might have been the first day even of making Blackout. So this is perfect. So this is page 94. Humans do not get over, we work through. Taking care of yourself will be uncomfortable. You are already uncomfortable. Which discomfort are you willing to experience?
Read it again and pause after you say that first part, would you?
Okay. Humans do not get over, we work through.
Pause. I mean, that is so powerful. I'm just pausing because it's just moving me right now. We don't get over, we have to go through, yeah. Right? If things are difficult, yeah, we can put them aside and hide them, but ultimately we have to work through them. I mean, I think those first few words really, it's like, yes, the truth of that really struck me, Sarah.
Yeah, and it's still, I kind of feel it reading it. I haven't read this one in a long time. But it was just really clear early on that, like, we weren't going to, like, just get over everything that was happening, you know?
Right.
And I fall back on 12-step wisdom a lot. It's something I've studied a lot. I haven't like been in treatment for addiction or anything, but I have found the wisdom and the work really, really helpful in my own growth and healing. And, you know, there's that saying, that maxim, like, the only way out is through.
Right.
That was what this reminded me of.
Will you read the rest of it again? Keep reading the rest.
Yeah. Taking care of yourself will be uncomfortable. You are already uncomfortable. Which discomfort are you willing to experience?
And that second part I love. That's, we can temporarily, maybe through different defenses, escape some kind of discomfort. But if we do, it's temporary, right? And so it's like using our greatest capacity to be aware and see that we can choose a discomfort that actually can help us evolve and grow.
Right.
And transform and heal.
Yeah.
And how hard that is sometimes.
It's so hard because we're programmed to not do that.
Totally.
We're programmed to go to pleasure and avoid pain. So what part of us wants to turn, we're always saying this in our classes, turn towards, can you meet what's happening? Can we notice, pause, allow? I see somebody really appreciated that phrase, notice, pause, allow. Can I just notice? Can I, and you talked about, in this big pause of COVID, can I give it space and then see what comes from there? So.
And yeah, a lot of times it's like things have to get uncomfortable enough in our type or in our struggles, for us to be willing and able to choose a different discomfort. We have to get to this point where like, okay, it's already awful. So I might as well choose this other awful and see if that can get me somewhere new. Yeah.
Yeah.
The redemptive quality, right?
Yeah.
Like actually, this is trying to help us, meeting the pain as much as it is, because otherwise, how much would we grow if we were just literally, people don't like this, but just literally like everything the same and there was just contentment all the time. And there were ups or downs or whatever. It's like both heights and depths spur us on.
Yeah.
To keep
and
growing.
I think it gets a lot easier or gradually easier to choose that intentional discomfort. We can learn to tell the difference, of what kind of uncomfortable and which is valuable and productive. And the more we kind of practice that, it's, I think, easier to be able to make that choice sooner, hopefully.
Right.
Really meet the discomfort. Sometimes it actually is uncomfortable as we imagine it's going to be,
right?
Or trouble as it's going to be. It's like, oh, there's some tightness in my throat. Do you know? Because I'm afraid to say something. It's just, oh, tightness. I mean, that it actually, we can, in a sense, befriend and see that these things that we want to get away with maybe aren't quite as terrifying as we think they are.
Right. Right.
So any final thoughts about that poem from anyone?
No, I think that's good.
All right. So Renee, which poem did you pick?
For my first one, I picked the one on page 38.
Got it.
Which really spoke to actually one of our values, this worth and belonging, and kind of the narrative Enneagram, and a lot of us, our commitment, our goal to have as foundational greater diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in our trainings and in everything we do. So work in progress, but please.
Raise the floor for everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats. Nurture one another. Take care of the community. We are the community.
That one really touches my heart, just to say that.
Yeah. It starts with a well-known phrase kind of that was just findable in the whatever magazine or newspaper this came from, but raise the floor for everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats. I really believe that. And I think that bears out. And, there's always a debate about that, but.
I was going to say, how do you see that bearing out now? How do you see that?
Well, even I'm trying not to just stay like big national, political, global with this, because of course that's sort of a political position, but like even just even in terms of like within our organization, within T&E, and we talk, now we have this gift of like an intergenerational staff and faculty, and there's questions of like where in the past, just in business, like things may have seemed like competition, or more kind of seeing things more in terms of competition. And I think my generation, and more so those even younger than I am, kind of see like collaboration and connection as valuable, and understand that kind of everybody can be lifted, and everyone can kind of move forward or move deeper together. And there's just, it's sort of more of the default, and we just kind of come from that angle. So
that is hopeful to hear, as one of those ones in the other end of the generations too. I mean, we just all gathered, our organization, and coming away with such appreciation for the wisdom and the intelligence and the creativity of, quote, I don't mean this in a discriminating way, but those younger than my 71-year-old being, it's like, oh my God, this is in good hands. These folks have brilliance and enthusiasm, and that's just hopeful for me to hear, Sarah. Hear you say that.
Thank you. I really believe it.
Yeah, and I think no matter what we see, because we see so much through the media, I believe, and I think there's evidence that there are greater circles of care and compassion all the time that are spreading. And that doesn't get the same kind of airtime, but that it's true. You can, look at all of the organizations doing so much amazing work on social issues, environmental issues. And there's also in that poem, I want to say, like, what I recognize, is that growing up, in the generation I did, it was much more, our inner work was much more about individual enlightenment, individual growth, right? Yeah. About you working with you. And actually our organization, it's all about the collective. People transform on a panel in 10 or 15 minutes because they're being held in community, that we actually evolve in community. And it's about our collective enlightenment, our collective liberation that feels so important, which I think that's what your poem really speaks to for me.
Yeah, and that the individual transformation like can't happen outside the context of the connection, like, because we are inherently connected, right? And so like my well-being is bound up with yours, and to just have experiences that remind us of that are so valuable. So the relational and the collective transformation can happen because of the individual work that we do, but in the context of community.
Yeah, it's all of it. It just used to feel very singular.
Yeah.
And so much was put on, if I can just go out and do my meditation and my somatic practice, I can create a nice rosy image of myself and present myself to the community, all fixed, bringing my totally human, messy, beautiful self to community, to be held by other beautiful, messy selves.
Yeah, that relational field is so important. I mean, we just need each other. We just do. So
yeah. I see a comment about like leaving an individual mental health session and feeling like, why are we doing this on islands alone? And yeah, that's such a good question and problem. And I've seen tweets and things lately, like like only so much can happen with like one-on-one talk therapy. Like we can't change like that. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot of good and important work that we can do there. And these like structural, societal, social realities that we live in, like can't fix, like one-on-one can't fix all those problems. We need all of we need engagement at all the layers, which is what we've been speaking to. Yeah. Terry, do you have another one you want me to read?
Yes. So I want you to read page 95 about the new growth that might happen.
Allow a place to move. Slow release, new growth, desire. This encourages blooming.
This is our flower image, right? We have a universal growth process that's awareness, allow, and this allowing is, again, in our notice pause, allow, to give us space for this new growth to come and not think we know where we're going or have an idea of how to get there. Like you just said a minute ago, like all the competition get here, but it's just more an arising. And that's what this poem really, I loved the word slow release, new growth, desire to encourage blooming, not to fast track it or have it be this way or that way, but again, a lot of our work is about receptivity. I can hear Helen Palmer saying receptivity is the mode of awareness through which the soul grows. Can I be receptive? And that's so hard for us in this culture and many other cultures. It's like fast, faster is better. Come on, 1, 2, 3, type A, get it done. And so this just, I could just feel the slowness and the invitation to grow, not the pressure. You got to do this in the next 10 minutes.
I love that.
That's what struck me.
Invitation, not pressure. I love that. And I think it gets us into the somatic piece or the physical body piece, the place to move and the desire and the release and the not forcing, like you said, just the allowing, and that's what can lead to blooming or growth.
What were you thinking when you wrote this? What was up for you? Do you remember?
I think, well, what's cool about you choosing this is also that this is sort of the piece that's tied to the cover image. So, and that's kind of, there's a leap to make there, but I also made this painting during the pandemic, which is called Floria, which is named after a character in an opera. But the impetus of that that obviously means flowering or blooming. And I've written about that on my blog. It's actually connected to ice skating and a Michelle Kwan obsession, for anyone who's interested. But this poem pairs with that painting for me. But the movement, I think was key, because again, like if everything tied to the screen, and I just remembered how much my body was carrying the tension and overwhelm of everything that was happening. And so along with these creative practices, I also had to figure out, okay, like what are my physical practices? And so, daily walks were non-negotiable, and yoga and like Epsom salt baths when I could. And eventually I got into rollerblading, which I'm loving now, but allowing that space to just move and allow things to move through me and not stay so bottled up. So I think that was part of what was going on there.
And I love the word desire, right? You want it, your heart's in it. We want to grow, we want to explore new things and be receptive to them. How about you, Renee? What do you get when you hear this?
Well, it's just, there's such and you guys have both kind of spoken to it, but such a sense of, it's just like being part of nature. There is a movement. It's not like, or being nature, more than being part of, being nature, right? Natural movement that takes time, but it isn't about all that pushing, I know from my own experience, it's just like the effort to make things happen versus that opening. Again, allow the nature that is us. I always had my image of like the face of the flower turning to the sun and just being fed by that. So it's really, that poem is really sweet, juicy, like that. It's just, like pollen or something.
I love it.
And the word allow, that's such an open, again, another invitation. It's not force or, it's allow. It's inviting. Again, back to what we talked about a minute ago, then the invitation, not the have to.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting thing to bring forward, because that is a word that I go back to. I think that is one of the hardest lessons that I have had to learn and have to learn over and over again, to allow things to happen, to let things happen and not, control or micromanage aesthetically or on other levels. That's I think that's a recurring theme for me. I'm a songwriter as well. I have a song called Allow, and I think it.
Yeah. Can we start it?
Yeah, I'll have to get you a voice memo. It's one of my favorite ones. I think that is a theme. I didn't think about that in terms of this poem, but now that you bring it up, and somebody had mentioned something about type 4s in a comment like early on in the conversation. I should tell people who maybe don't know, but I do lead with type 4. So I think there are poems, and intentionally poems throughout, that I think speak to all of our type perspectives, or from all our type perspectives. But that is my type. And there's just, back to the allow, there's just an allowance that is required in making these poems. I'm starting with other people's words. Like, it's inherently collaborative, because my starting point is someone else's work. So I'm allowing something to take shape that I don't have total control over, and that's a really good practice for me and people like me.
Well, and again, the allow is really easy when things are going well. Who can't allow when everything's sort of flowing? The allow is hard when stuff comes up that's not what we want, according to either our type or personality or whatever. And that's when that trust and the unfolding and turning towards what's uncomfortable is really hard. So I'm right there with you, and having a little harder time allowing when it's not exactly what I think or what I want to be happening. So
exactly,
it's when we need it the most, right?
Yeah.
And welcome to the human race. Right? This kind of cross type, believe me. We have 9 different ways that we want to control things and want things to be a particular way, to meet certain needs. So,
true. Yeah.
This is part of being in community with each other. Facing our ways, we try to micromanage and control and, tend, in my case, sometimes tend to control as a type 2.
10? We got to laugh at ourselves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anything else on that poem? Anybody? Okay.
And I want to go to my third selection, because we're talking about this so much. Page 131.
Okay.
Because for me, this one is all about our, and what we teach in the narrative, our little kind of somatic, abbreviated teaching. If you remember nothing else about how to work with your body, notice, pause, allow. So we keep saying that. So I'd love to have you read that one, Sarah.
Definitely. Focus on the sensations in your body. Travel inward, listen, wait.
I might slide class around that.
Will you read it again?
Yeah, focus on the sensations in your body. Travel inward, listen, wait.
I want everybody on the call to do that right now with us. Really. Take a minute and just focus in on the sensation you're noticing in your body right now. Some may go, what? Some people may have a lot of experience with it. But this is so important. Yeah. What struck you about it, Renee?
Oh, but my heart is smiling as big as my mouth. Oh, do you know, notice, pause, allow is kind of and really these words, but speak right to that in such a inviting way, you know, because we really do need to be present with our felt sense experience to have our experiences, our neural pathways, all of it transform. It's very core, receptive to others, ourselves, something that's greater. So it's just so key. And I'm just, you know, those three words are your words for me. So tell me what you noticed when you read it this time, Sarah.
Yeah, it's great for me to kind of read them now in reflection and see what comes up. And we have a question in the chat. Where can I get the poems? Thank you for asking. So this book is available on my website, sarahdewey.com, and we'll link to my profile and all of that at the end. And there are also individual poems available there, like as prints as well, if you don't want all 200 of them or however many there are. But I appreciate the question. So focus on the sensations in your body, travel inward, listen, wait. Just to frame it, a lot of the poems that you chose for me to read today were in the breath section of the book, which I found, which you chose separately, of course, so you didn't know that, but which I found apt and appropriate. We focus so much on our breath and the in and down process in our work. And this poem, of course, could have been in that section, but it's actually in the section that I called mystery, but which is really kind of spirituality and some conflict around religion, perhaps, some questions about God, perhaps, because you know, I've been on a real journey of evolution with all of that. And, you know, what's so much more interesting and compelling and helpful to me now these days is the experience of the divine, or however one might name that, within each of us and among the connections. So within and among. And so to find God, to find the divine in the body, and to embrace that, to travel inward, to listen, to wait there, rather than to, you know, try to call down something that's above or beyond or, you know, outside of oneself. That is uninteresting and unhelpful to me at this point in my life. And so that was why I situated this in that spirituality section. Of course, it connects with everything else. These are kind of all, you know, there's a thread connecting all of them, but that's kind of what I observe today as I read it.
Yeah. And what's it like for you inside? Like, what's it feel like?
I feel very warm right now, like in a good way. I feel warm around the chest, and not particularly tight, which is what happens for me, you know, first when I'm kind of activated. And, you know, I appreciate so much this practice of noticing bodily sensations in our work, because it's like, you know, when I was 15 or something and that tightness in the chest happens and the unsettling in the gut, it's just like, oh no, what's happening? Like, it's
right.
Terrible. Someone's hates me or is going to leave me, or, you know, like it just you activate all this narrative around these feelings. But what we learn in our trainings with the narrative, it's like, your throat is tight.
Right.
And this is your pattern. And so find, I think, Renee, I remember you teaching us about this. So, you know, find a resource point on your body that is not in pain, that is not tight. It can be your left big toe, if that's what, you know, is the safe space in your body, but shift your attention there and notice, like, okay, like I am actually okay. Like, I am in this room. I am not being attacked. I'm supported. I have, you know, and to be able to kind of regulate oneself from there. So, yeah, to be able to notice those sensations kind of as neutral, is just very helpful.
Yeah. And what strikes me is just recently, as I lead with 6 on the Enneagram, tending to go outside for answers. And well, if I just read this or talk to that person, that, you know, they could help me. And I can hear one of my teachers saying, just go inside, you know, go inside and wait. Because in my experience, and this might not be true for everyone depending on your belief system or how you practice, but that's where I can connect with that greater divine, that and a lot of times the answer will come, the knowing will happen if I can meet the discomfort. Like you said, the anxiety is, I gotta know, because this doesn't feel very good in my body right now, this fear or whatever is there. So if I can take the step and meet it, and then, you know, oftentimes something settles or calms or receives, or, you know, so that's what strikes me. Listen and wait. But waiting is so hard for so many of us. Again, we talked about that a minute ago, that control. Wait? What do you mean wait? I might have to wait 5 minutes.
Just even wait for 30 seconds.
I know.
Right?
It's amazing what that can do. Yeah.
Just to interrupt the
Right.
very quick reactive pattern.
Yeah.
Right? Interrupt it. Even if you stay for 5 seconds, things start to change, right?
Right.
So,
And to trust the healing and the wholeness in the body. Trust, you know, I, as a 6 again, get so contracted pretty fast, and other types do in different ways. But, you know, there's a lack of trust that things are unfolding, and there's, you know, it will work out at some point. Believe that?
we keep teaching what we need to learn also.
You bet. You bet.
That's right.
Together. We're all in this together, right?
We are indeed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm.
Let's try to get through a couple more of these. Which one do you want to hear next?
81. Again, this is the same theme, but go ahead and read 81.
Accepting things as they are is difficult. Resistance is suffering on repeat. Don't go to war with the same thing over and over.
I just had a laugh out loud. We have a little saying, and I think Shinzen maybe. Pain plus resistance equals suffering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we could just deal with the pain instead of resisting. So I loved it. Don't go to war with the same thing over and over, which we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking when you wrote this?
Oh, I think this one's pretty straightforward. Accepting things as they are. As they are is actually italicized in the original text, which is helpful. I mean, there's such, again, this gets to my type, but I am always aware of, like, okay, like, this is reality, but this is what it could be. This is what it should be. And like I keep thinking of my songs today. This is fun, but like I have a bridge on a song that is just, it didn't have to be this way. And that's like the most like mournful, but like real thing for me. Like to just look around and be like, it didn't have to be this way. And to just like grieve that. And so, but to accept things truly as they are has been such a work for me, and an ongoing work. And resistance to that, like my favorite part is the middle. The resistance is suffering on repeat.
Yes.
It's just gonna loop. Like, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but again, like, speaks to a very real process that I stay in.
Or tendency to idealize how things could be. Like, it's a great gift to be able to see how things could be, how connections could be made, a creative act, whatever. Mm-hmm. And really disappointed with how things are. And so, speaking to that piece of work that you've been doing, would you agree? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Oh no, that's perfect. No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I've gotten better at that. You know, I mean, there are moments and there are scenarios and contexts in which that is still really hard for me. But like, for example, you know, even like at the retreat that we recently had, you know, Julia and I were trying to figure out like what we could get done, like in terms of some pictures or videos that we wanted to do. And I was it just was very clear to me that like, this is the ideal situation, that we would get all of this extra stuff, but it's not in the agenda. Everyone's tired. We're already, you know, spending a lot of cognitive and emotional energy. And so realistically, like, we can't do this today. Like the ideal is absolutely like, this is what we should do to do our jobs well. And we can't do it today.
Not happening.
And so just being present in each moment to like do the one thing that I could show up and do for those few days was what I kind of kept coming back to. I just didn't have capacity to do more than that. And so
when is lack of capacity a gift?
well, it really,
right?
It really can be. Like, I'm going to write something up about this soon, but just like, for the love of limits, like this illusion that we can be limitless and just grow endlessly, and it's just not real. And as somebody who has some chronic illness and some other struggles that even in my young life, you know, have made me very aware of my own limits and aware of what happens when I don't respect them. That's hard and frustrating, but I think it is actually an asset sometimes, because some people don't learn that for a long time.
I thought you said for the love of lemons. But you know what? A limit is a lemon.
I thought you said lemons too. I thought that was fine.
No, it's limits.
Well, I do love lemons, but limits, yes, are limitations. I'm glad we clarified.
Okay.
But it's relevant. I mean, it's relevant if you think of, because we all think, you know, sour, limits are sour. The other thing I want to say about this poem is, and a lot of what we're talking about, the concepts are really easy to understand. Putting them in practice is a whole other ball game, right? It's like, so it's like fun to talk about them again and hear them and then experience them, you know, because they're so true, and just keep reminding ourselves that yeah, resistance is suffering on repeat. And sometimes resistance has a place too. It's not like we want to get rid of it, but it has a proper place and not just endless looping. So that's what I'm appreciating. We
got a comment that also a listener also heard lemons. I will work on my diction. Don't use my T's.
That was an intuition, and that you need to rethink the title.
Yeah.
Lemons, because you know there's all this, if you have lemons, make lemonade, you know.
They're also they're very healthy. They're detoxifying. They're alkali, you know, I'll play with that.
All right. So one final poem, Renee?
Yep. My last one's on page 97.
All right.
It's, you know, really, again, at the heart of what we do in our work, you know, is sharing our authentic selves, you know, in community, and what happens there. So I'll just say that as you read the poem.
Yeah. Secrets suffocate. The pain of honesty and integrity shall set you free. Authenticity in relationship fosters a positive view of reality. It helps individuals reclaim embodiment and responsibility in the cosmos.
So good. What happens for you as you read it, Sarah?
I love this one, and it feels like a testament to what I learned in a very embodied way in living in community. I lived in intentional community for at least 6 years, technically a little more than that, and you know, with 8 other people in a house for a lot of that time. And that's where the rubber really met the road with Enneagram work for me. But it's a testament to that. What's interesting also, or just a fun fact for those who are familiar with this, I think about Dax Shepard when I read this poem, who's an actor and a writer and director and podcast host. So I listen to his podcast, as many people do, but he's famously in recovery and has been sober for a very long time, but had a relapse last year. and shared about that very publicly. And I created this poem alongside the news of that relapse. And so the secret's suffocating, and the honesty and the integrity so central to that work of recovery. This poem can be dedicated to Dax, but of course it's much bigger than that. His podcast is called Armchair Expert, for those. Yeah.
Well, for me too, you know, we're relating so much of this to the narrative Enneagram in our trainings. Is, you know, people will sit on a panel and they will say things and share things that they have not said before.
Yeah.
And didn't plan on saying. Again, because of being held and watching people be held around things that are they have felt shame about,
right?
Authentic about it, and to be held in that, and to see the growth come out of that is just, and the resilience and the kindness, and I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just kind of magic. That's really what came up for me so much in that poem is, yeah, the magic that happens when we're really human with each other.
Right.
It's like
in environments where it feels safe enough. I just want to say that.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
It's like something lightens. It's like it's something that's been stuck and held and hard and tight. It's like I just have chills right now. It's like it lightens up, and it lightens up the person, lightens up the room. It's just like the energy can flow more easily. There's just more freedom, and then capacity for embodiment. That's what we talk about. We want to be more embodied and in the moment with our lives. Yeah. It was a beautiful one too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any final comments on that poem?
No, I don't. Again, I'm just glad that you chose that one. You chose a great group of them. It's been fun for me to read through them again today with you two.
Well, it's been a great joy for us to be here with you, and just your creativity and your brilliance, and to be journeying with you is just a real privilege, Sarah. So thanks for letting us have this conversation. Renee, honey, what do you have to say?
I just want to say thank you. I am constantly surprised and just kind of amazed as I get to know you better, as we get to work together. And again, your creativity, your brilliance, your big heart, your care. We're very grateful to know you and to know you're on the planet. I'm going to start crying. So.
Thank you. Gosh, the gratitude is just so mutual. And I met you as my teachers, and you are my teachers, and you are also my colleagues and just my friends. And I value you so much. And when I, shared about that we were going to do this, I said you're two of the most thoughtful people that I know, and that is true. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in the fullest sense, like just so deeply thoughtful. And I'm super grateful for that. I'm grateful for everybody who's joined us today too, and the comments and the interaction. We don't always get that. Like, that's a real gift to have the participation in the conversation. So thank you, everybody. And if you want to continue to engage these poems, if you want the book, my handle, and we'll link to it in the caption, but is at Sarah_Duet. Again, my website is just sarahduet.com, and the book and other poems are all there. There is a chance to win your very own free copy of the book. So I'll type this out as soon as we're off, but if you make sure to like the Narrative Enneagram page, or to follow the Narrative Enneagram, to follow my page at Sarah_Duet, and then just leave a quick comment. Either tag somebody who you would like to hear this conversation, or if you're feeling adventurous, tell us how you are going to practice collaborative creativity in the coming days or week or so. And again, I have a very broad view of what creativity means. It's not just poems or paintings or things like that. We just created this conversation and this space together, and people may be creating holiday meals soon, or travel agendas, or breakfast, or an experience. You know, think very broadly. We are human beings, and therefore we are inherently, innately creative. We are creating all of the time, whether we realize it or not. And so if we can bring intentionality, like know that we are making something of our days, of our time, of our life, then we can create more positively, I think. Because, you know, of everything in the world, you know, humans have human creativity has produced some of the very best and the very most destructive. And so all that said, let us know how you're going to be creative this week. If that's a breakfast casserole, great. If it's something different, that's great too. So thanks everybody again.
Are you going to read your poem, the last poem?
I am, now that you reminded me. Thank you, because I did forget.
I want to hear it.
And types around.
Yes, because I've got all in my heart. Thanks everybody. I'm loving these comments. Also, my dad jumped in on Instagram. Hi, Dad. Wants to know how many black markers I used. One of our friends' kids, who is like 12, like came to an event about the book, and that was his question in front of the whole crowd. It was great. Like everybody had like processed, like, and he was just like, how many black markers did you go through? I don't know. I wish I would have counted now though, because that's a fun question. Okay. This is the last poem in the book. It's one of my favorites. It's what we will leave each other with today. So this is what I want you to know. I do not know your race, your religion, whether you are young or old. I do know that you are not alone. We are not alone.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thanks, everybody. Love, gratitude, light, sending it all. Love you, Terry and Renee.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.